What is up, fight fans? We are live on MMA Weekly, the most trusted source in news and entertainment for almost 20 years in mixed martial arts, and this is the UFC Whittaker versus Vegas. Also, Jake Paul and Ben Askren going to happen this weekend as well. Big weekend for combat sports fans and for people making a mockery of combat sports and combat sports fans all across the world. It is a big day for combat sports fans overall in general. We're going to get to that in a minute, but first I want to let you know that we are powered by CBD Emporium, featuring Level Select CBD. That's right. How do you get up at 5 a.m. on a Wednesday morning and go box and lift and then come home and cook food for your kids, drive them to school, and then come up to the studio, prep and get ready and do shows all day long and content? Simple. You take Level Select CBD from CBD Emporium. Right now, you're going to get 50% off taking the same products that I take every single day at StayInTheFightMMA.com. The code is MMA50. MMA50 at StayInTheFightMMA.com to get 50% off the products that are changing my life every single day. Not only does the pain go away, not only does the stress and anxiety almost completely gone, and then sleeping like a baby every single night. That's right, and you can too. As we age, guys, we need as many things as we can to help us out. And look, put it this way, the pain pills, the pain relievers, all those things are so bad for your body. They are awful, and they add up over the years, the abuse and the damage that you do. None of that's going to happen with Level Select CBD from CBD Emporium. 3 levels for 3 levels of pain. The purest CBD on the planet with no THC. StayInTheFightMMA.com, the code MMA50. Jim Grieshaber, call me Gries, along with my man Jeff Cain. And Jeff, the fans are going to be back in the house in Vegas, July 10th, UFC 264. Poirier versus McGregor. The trilogy is back on. Conor telling Ariel Helwani he signed his bout agreement this morning, but not before Dana White, the UFC boss, put out a Twitter video saying not only is this fight set, the fans are coming back to Las Vegas July 10th. I can't wait.
Yeah, big news. Fans are back in Vegas and for a big fight. And the fight's was never really off, but Conor signed the bout agreement today, which was kind of weird that they were promoting that without the bout agreements. But yeah, the fight's on in front of fans. Back in Las Vegas. We'll see what happens. I don't know the details on that, Jim. We'll have, because the story's kind of just breaking today. I don't know. People are talking about vaccine passports and all this stuff I saw in the comments. So I don't know the details about how they're going to do it. Because each state's different. Florida's different than Texas, and now that Vegas has opened up, I just don't know the details of it yet. Interesting though.
How do you say the governor's name? Sisolak or Sisolak? I don't know. Sisolak, right? And of course, Carolyn Goodman, the mayor of Vegas, is saying it's politically motivated because he's up for re-election next year. And no city in the world has been hit as hard by the coronavirus as Las Vegas, right? But Governor Sisolak announcing yesterday, Jeff, that Vegas, Nevada, really, not just Vegas, will be, and we don't care about the rest of Nevada for our purposes, Vegas will be back open all the way across the board, but the mask mandate will remain. So that will be June 1st, which gives plenty of time leading up to that July 10th. Now, there could be other spikes. There could be other things that happen in the meantime. But as it stands right now, the world is coming back. The UFC is leading the way like always, and leading from the front like always. Going to Jacksonville with fans this month, Houston, Texas next month, and finally Las Vegas in July. So the world looks like it's coming back, and, we can finally talk about a full house again. And what's interesting is, you talk about that fight card with McGregor and Poirier having fans in Vegas, talk about the ones coming up with, some fighters never fought at the Apex. Some fighters will never be able to say they had the experience of fighting in the Apex, Jeff. Zhang Weili, for example, her last fight was against Joanna Jędrzejczyk in March of 2020 at T-Mobile Arena. Well, she won't fight again until she fights Rose Namajunas, and that is obviously going to be on the Masvidal-Usman rematch card coming up this month. So, like Zhang, for example, never fought in an empty building, and a lot of fighters won't be able to say that they did, even though, and I read this morning, and I can't find the story now, that the UFC Apex, where the heck did it go, man? It was in one of my social media. There it is. Venues hosting the most UFC events. Number one, Jeff, easily, obviously, and everybody in the world knows, and if you don't know, you're a Johnny-come-lately. MJ hosted the most UFC events with 42, was second with 31.
Who's hoping? Did you say the MGM Grand?
Yeah, 42. The next closest venue with 31 events is
Apex.
Apex. How about that? And guess what's number? Where are we? Where are we? Where are we? We Fight Island is. Where's Fight Island? I
It's
don't see
probably
Fight Island
lower.
on there, so it's not lower. But
Yeah.
T-Mobile Arena is 5th. Mandalay Bay is 3rd. The Pearl at the Palms is 4th. But obviously MGM Grand. But how about the Apex? 31 events, all of them in this past year with COVID.
Yeah, man. I mean, the UFC was ahead of the game on that they had that facility there ready to go. That's not what it was built for, but it worked out. It worked out really well to where they were able to have everything in-house and create a bubble of their own. Yeah, man, the Apex stepped up. The UFC stepped up on, during strange times. Yeah, I was kind of surprised that the MGM Grand still has, because it's been so long. Or feels like it's been so long since we had an event there. I remember all the events in the Mandalay Bay, so I knew that was going to be up there. But I was kind of surprised, honestly, that the MGM Grand was still holding on to the top. But it won't be here next year, right? Because the Apex is still going to shoot like the Ultimate Fighters and all that.
I don't think those are going to count. I think it's just fight nights and other shows. I don't know. Maybe it'll catch it. Maybe T-Mobile sure will one day. But again, it's only like 3 events a year at T-Mobile, sometimes 4. Jeff, it's crazy too, man. McGregor the other day, and we ran with it. Of course we ran with it. It's what we do. I mean, we're in the business of getting views. We're in the business of getting you guys engaged. And by the way, what's up to everybody in the chat room? Took me a little too long to get to you guys. Sorry about that. It's early in the morning. We're getting used to the new day and the new time slot on the show. We appreciate all of you guys being here right now, and we love the Conor fans. We pissed a lot of people off the other day, Jeff, or you did, talking about Conor. Jeff has outspoken opinions about Conor, but look, Conor McGregor knows how to sell fights. The Conor McGregor of old is why Conor McGregor is who he is. I didn't like the docile, calm, overall just changed Conor McGregor. I love you, Dustin. This is going to be a great fight. I want to donate. That's not Conor McGregor, man. I was like, who is this dude? And he tried just like John Jones when he wore the khakis to the DC, and he's wearing khakis and a button-down shirt. And I'm like, you look like an 8th grade white kid from a private school. Clearly his PR team dressed him, right? So those types of things, people try to change who they are and portray an image that isn't really them. Now, the problem with Conor is where is that line? And what he did the other day, calling Dustin a hillbilly, they went back and forth about the donation. That just creates more of a buzz. And there it is right there. Poirier put the ad for the hot sauce up, and he sold a bunch of hot sauce. And by the way, shout out to Dustin Poirier for liking my Instagram post this morning. Thank you, Diamond. I appreciate that. It's on MMA Weekly Stories, too. Just a little Gries' piece, and it's about McGregor and Poirier being back on and the fans being there. But there's Conor. And look, the other thing I'll say, Jeff, maybe part of it was this with Conor. A Conor McGregor fight is not a Conor McGregor fight without fans. I'm sorry. It's just not. He's one of those fighters. A lot of the other fighters who fought over this year, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other if there are fans or not. But certain fighters, there have to be fans in the house, and he clearly is at the top of that list. So if there's anybody who should headline the first show with fans back, obviously he's the guy.
Yeah, I mean, the fans definitely, for McGregor particularly, because he brings so many people flying in. And so when a city hosts a UFC event, they definitely get more bang for the buck whenever Conor McGregor's headlining the card, because you have tons of people. I've been in Vegas when Conor's fought, man, and the Irish accents are everywhere, right? I mean, everywhere. There's videos of people that they post up of them on the flights over here, and everybody going crazy. It's like the whole damn flight's a Conor McGregor flight. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, Conor's going to headline that fight card against Poirier, and then fans are going to be back, and we'll see, man. Then merchandise is going to be flowing, and you make so much more money with the fans there, right? With the concessions and the merchandising and the hotels and the bars and everything just goes crazy in Vegas. Props to Vegas, man, because you're right. Vegas was hit particularly hard, but any city designed the way that Vegas is designed is going to be hit when something like this happens. But this was out of the blue. We didn't expect it. And finally, after over a year, we're going to have some fans back in Las Vegas.
And we're going to have a hell of a fight, because I will say this, nothing excites me more than the possibility of Conor McGregor being motivated and inspired and ready to go more than ever. Now, he got back in the octagon against Poirier, obviously in January. He had 46 seconds of octagon time against Cowboy Cerrone in 2020. And in 2020, 18, this guy hasn't fought much overall in years. He's 1-2 now at 155. This is a guy who's got so much to prove. The world is saying he's done. The world is saying Conor McGregor isn't Conor McGregor anymore. Poirier's the better fighter. He's got to hear this for months, Jeff. Conor McGregor, motivated, training at his best to be his best, is still as good as you're going to find in the world. So if Conor McGregor isn't ready for this fight more than he has been almost any fight he's ever fought, that's a problem with Conor, but I believe he will be. I also believe Poirier will step it up another notch, the pro's pro that he is. So I believe we'll see the best Dustin Poirier and possibly, yes, the best Conor McGregor we've ever seen. We'll see the best of each guy that night, I believe.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what we see with Conor as far as his changing of stance, how he checks the leg kicks and everything, because I think Conor's going to come out looking different. He has to look different or he's not going to beat Poirier. And so I'm interested to see if he kind of abandons that kind of Lyoto karate sort of stance that he has, just leaves the leg out there. So I'm interested in that. You know, what adjustments was Conor able to make? Because clearly Poirier doesn't have to make any adjustments other than he did eat a good left hand in that first round. But he doesn't have to make really any adjustments. The adjustments are going to have to come from Conor's end. And I don't know. I'm interested to see what he does to fix them. You know, because it's a minor deal. You know, as far as the leg kicks and checking that calf kick and everything. But for Conor, it might be a bigger deal because I think it's going to entail him changing his entire stance.
Yeah, McGregor and Poirier, the trilogy. McGregor is in July 10th. Okay, so right now, it's never too early to give the opening odds. McGregor, a minus 125 favorite. Poirier at plus 105. That's shocking. That is absolutely shocking to see McGregor as the early favorite there.
Well, that line's going to move. I mean, the odds makers are smart on that, right? Because a lot of money's going to come in on Poirier right now, and then it's going to change the odds, and then late, all the McGregor fans will jump back on because McGregor will be a slight underdog, and then the money will come in on McGregor late. Or that's my prediction on how the betting is going to go for this fight. We'll see. It's interesting that he's the favorite. You know, whenever he lost. And lost decisively when they fought just not, in January.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting, man. Well, there it is, guys. Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier is all set. The bout agreements are signed. Everybody's happy. Well, I don't know if they're happy. They should be happy. They're going to make a ton of money. The fans are coming back. Dana White's happy. July 10th, I'll be there. I'm happy. I will be there that weekend for sure. There's nothing on God's green earth that'll keep me away. I go every July, always there on media days, getting the interviews, and then we'll be doing our shows. So we'll be doing some great stuff there, and we better get going putting that together. That's a lot of work that I got to do coming up. And, Jeff, we'll have a lot of shows under our belts by then. So much will have happened in the UFC with the rankings and the movement. You might have 2 or 3 new champions by then. There's so much going on. There's so many big fights coming up. Belts are changing hands. Up-and-coming fighters are making their move. People coming off last year and big years in the Apex, looking at things and trying to be better, like Kevin Holland going to Daniel Cormier for wrestling. There's so many things that are exciting. You got Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou going back and forth now, the boxer versus the UFC heavyweight champion, and Ngannou not backing down. You got Rose Namajunas and Zhang Wei Li, and Rose talking about communism going into that fight and some political awareness there, some things with her and her family coming from Lithuania. The storylines are there. The big fights are there. We had some movement in the rankings this week, Jeff, and we're going to transition into that now, the Whittaker and Gastelum preview. But before we do, Jeff Cain, just want to get your final thoughts on this little bit of a mini roller coaster that we went on this week that I'm starting to feel like maybe Monday was a little bit of a setup now, a little bit of a ruse leading into this announcement to build the attention. Not like Dana White or Conor McGregor would ever know how to do that, right?
I don't know. Look, I think maybe Poirier just put it out there in the public, and then Conor reacted and threw a little bit of a tantrum, and the UFC was like, "Hell yeah, let's start." And then it all come together with the Vegas opening up as well. I'm not saying the UFC didn't know or didn't have, because the UFC is constantly in contact with the the Las Vegas governments and stuff, and trying it all over the country, trying to figure out where they can go that fans will be allowed. And so the UFC probably knew fans were going to come back in July, or that there was a really good chance of it. But I don't think it was a setup. I think Poirier just put it out there, and McGregor flipped out a little bit, and the UFC, it was just kind of a timing deal. Let's release now that we're going to have fans back, and look, it'll sell out in 2 minutes. It's great for Las Vegas. It's great for the hotels in Vegas because and the service workers, because that's the industry that's been decimated by this pandemic is the service industry. You know, the servers, the bartenders, the venues that host these fight cards and concerts and everything. They've been decimated by it, and now they're going to get a big push in July in Las Vegas, because this is going to be. I forget. I used to know the number about how many millions the UFC brings in to a community whenever they host an event there. With Conor, you got to probably add $100 million to it, right? You got to just add another $100 million to what Conor brings to a community whenever you bring a fight card. But Vegas is going to be crazy that week. Going to be absolutely
and I don't
crazy.
even want to know what the ticket prices in the hotel rooms are going to look like. I'm there every year. I'm calling friends now to stay with them because I ain't paying like $300-400 a night for a hotel that should be $50-60. It's happened before. Before we move too far on, Jeff, I just want to get to a couple of questions in the chat. One from Sasha. I like this one, Sasha, and she's been here a lot lately, so appreciate you, Sasha. She says, guys, RDA said he's got a fight on July 10th, and it's not Islam. Who do you think it is? But Islam's managed. Did you see the Islam this morning in the news? Islam is coming back this summer. So that's been, what I'm saying. So Islam and RDA is probably that fight. It makes sense if you think about what the history there.
Yeah, as long as he's actually coming back. I was looking at the rankings. I don't really know. Yeah, Islam would be big. And that's a fight that Islam wants. It's a former champion. It jumps him well into the top 10 into the rankings. I don't know, but yeah, I think that she's probably along the right lines, unless like they're going to give it to Kevin Lee or something. But I would say that she's probably right that it's Islam, or at least they're planning for it to be Islam. I think right now, signing Islam to a fight, you're kind of, the UFC's kind of hesitant and want to make damn sure that you're ready and that you're going to be there. But clearly he thinks he's going to be back this summer. And I think that's probably the fight that RDA is going to have, but man, who knows?
And Khamzat Chimaev's going to be back this summer. There's going to be a whole bunch of stuff going on. So, I mean, that's a big fight card. You can fill in the blanks around McGregor and Poirier, but if that is International Fight Week, which it should be, right, based on all indications, if that is, the Hall of Fame ceremony and everything comes back, the Fan Expo and all that stuff comes back, maybe not. We don't know. I wouldn't see why not, right? And the UFC will get favorable terms anywhere they go in Vegas for obvious reasons, right? Because of the pandemic and everything and all the fans that they're bringing in. So it's going to be a huge week no matter what. With Conor there, every time Conor fights, the Irish invade Vegas. It's going to be awesome, Jeff. Can't wait. So Poirier versus McGregor is set. The bout agreements are signed July 10th in Vegas, and the fans will be in the house at T-Mobile Arena. But the fans won't be in the house this weekend, not many of them anyway. They start bringing a few select celebrities, and most of them aren't really fans. But they're in the Apex this weekend for Whittaker and Gastelum too, Jeff. And we talked about this fight card. You got Jake Paul and Ben Askren. And this Saturday will be live Saturday night for Paul and Askren and also for Whittaker and Gastelum. And it pains me to say Paul and Askren first. So I'm going to say Whittaker, Gastelum first. But we'll be here for both of those in the chat. You guys will have fun with both of those fights going on at one time. But I will say this, man. There's a lot riding for Ben Askren on that fight. There's a lot riding for the sport of MMA on that fight. You got Jake Paul challenging Poirier to spar now. It's like, shut up, dude. Fight Ben Askren. Beat him first, And I know what Jake Paul's doing. No hate there. He started on Vine with his brother Logan. So they've done some stupid shit over the years, but they know how to build and how to hold an audience. And what they're doing for boxers and for boxing in general, Jeff, I want to note, because everyone just goes, oh, it's trash. It's not real fighting. This kid sucks. Askren's just a wrestler. Nate Robinson, whatever. But at the end of the day, they're putting real fighters and good fighters on these cards with them, and they're getting people paid. So I have a hard time being too upset about anything that puts food on people's tables and that generates an interest in the sport. Is it exactly what I would want? Is it Jones Cormier? No, it's not, right? But it's going to put food on the table for a lot of people, and it's going to bring attention to the sport. Now, the worst kind of attention we could ever get in MMA is the kind we're going to get if Ben Askren loses.
I don't think that Ben Askren carries. I don't think Ben Askren was, a huge representative of mixed martial arts when he was in mixed martial arts, and so I don't know. Boxing fans are going to, boxing fans are going to be like, oh, the Ben Askren lost if Ben loses, but I'd reiterate the boxers that have come over to MMA, and this is a boxing match. You never. Props to James Toney for what he did, because he actually walked the walk, right? I mean, because boxers aren't calling out MMA guys to fight MMA fights. They want to get them in their art form and get them in the ring, and but they don't want to get in the cage, except for Toney. So props to him for that. He didn't last long, but it is what it is, man. Jake Paul called out Askren. Askren accepted the fight, and we're going to see what happens. there's been tons of news. It's hard to follow that, right? I mean, you got Masvidal saying, Jake Paul's going to knock him out. You got Jake Paul saying, I'm going to knock out Askren in 60 seconds. And then you got other people who've sparred with Jake Paul saying, Ben Askren's going to beat the crap out of this guy. So it's just all over the place when it comes to the commentary around that fight. I don't know what's going to happen because the only time I've seen Jake Paul was his last fight where he knocked out the basketball player. I wasn't greatly impressed. Yeah, I wasn't greatly impressed with him. All I could take away from that fight was the kid does have punching power, right? Those are big gloves, and he just knocked out a guy, so he does have punching power. I don't know if that's going to translate into a win over Ben Askren, and then I don't know how silly that it's going to be. Is it a legit professional fight? This isn't one of the exhibitions like the Tyson fight. This is a real sanctioned fight, right?
Yeah, man, and it's interesting too. People are asking what UFC 263 is going to be in the chat as well, and people are begging us to stop talking about Jake Paul, our diehards in here, and that's going to be our thing this weekend, man. We're going to be walking a line because we're going to be talking about both fights, and we're going to get a ton of clicks on Jake Paul, and we got to throw it out there. That's where the bread is buttered. That's what's happening all across. You'll see it everywhere. And interestingly enough, too, Jeff, and this is just one thing I want to point out, they're the really, as far as I know, the only big event to not leave Atlanta. Will Smith took his movie out of there to not leave Georgia. Will Smith took his movie out of there. MLB took the baseball all-star game out of there because of the new voting rules in Georgia. But this fight remains.
I didn't even really realize where this fight was taking place, Jim. And that sounds
I didn't either until I just read it. It's in Atlanta.
Yeah. Honestly, I assumed it was in California, right? I really and truly just assumed that it was going to be in California. No, it's in Atlanta. That's interesting. That's interesting that played out that way. But some sports don't get into the political arena, and other sports do, and clearly, Hollywood, the movies are always dabbling in and out of politics. Well, everybody is, man. As long as we have a political system that's for hire, you're going to have people.
But Major League Baseball
in a political world.
So Major League Baseball to protest a new voting law that obviously is designed to, I don't want to say hold minorities down or black people down, but obviously it's looked at as a new law that is negative toward black people, right? And I don't want to say, I'm careful with how I say things these days, but they do that. Then they're moving the All-Star game to a place that's all white people with worse voting laws. So it doesn't make any sense in this world. So that's why I don't talk politics, because none of it makes any sense to me, Jeff. But what does make sense to me is the UFC and fighting. It always comes full circle, and it always ends up with a great event. It's the UFC preview show, UFC Fight Night, Whittaker and Gastelum coming up this weekend in Vegas. Jim Grieshaber, call me Gries, my man Jeff Cain, right here on MMA Weekly, powered by CBD Emporium, featuring Level Select CBD. Stay in the fight, MMA.com, for the greatest CBD products on the planet. They have it with immune support in the morning. They have it with melatonin at night. I take them both. They have creams. They have roll-ons. They have the tincture that goes under your tongue, and you can be bougie and fancy. That's the word these days, Jeff. Bougie. You can be bougie right there with your little dropper, and it's a lot of fun being bougie, depending upon where you are. It'll be fun to be bougie in Vegas on July 10th. I'll tell you that. And you can be bougie with me with Level Select CBD. It's very easy to get it. Go to stayinthefightmma.com and put in the code MMA50. We're on breaking news cycle. We're going live. This show will be up until the fights this Saturday. Paul and Askren and Whittaker and Gastelum. We will be live Saturday night right here on MMA Weekly for both. We're going to shatter every record for views. I hope you're going to be here to do that with us. I've laid the challenge out right now. Subscribe, like, hit the bell. Be ready for Saturday night when we shatter the MMA Weekly views record. We shatter the MMA Weekly views record on Saturday night. Who's with me? I hope you guys are with me. I know Jeff's with me. And Jeff, I want to transition to the Whittaker Gastelum card. And, it's literally one thing that I want to say this first. And I hate saying this. I hate that these words are going to leave my mouth, but it's going to. Paul and Askren is a pay-per-view. Whittaker and Gastelum is a free fight. What in the blue hell is going to happen? Two things disastrous this weekend. One, Askren loses to Paul. We already talked about that. Two, Paul and Askren gets more viewers who are buying than the UFC gets free. Is that a possibility in your mind? You think? I think it's there. I think it's I'm 50-50 on it.
Man,
it's Jake Paul, dude.
I'm hesitant to say, because I'd have to look at what the last event did on ESPN, what the numbers were, and then kind of wrap my head around, can Jake Paul and them get that many pay-per-view buys? I think it's different audiences though. I really do. Like all the celebrities and all the TikTok fans and younger people in the YouTube community are all going to tune in for the Jake Paul stuff, right? I mean, they might not even be boxing fans, and they're probably not UFC fans, but they're all going to tune in for that because of the novelty of it. I jokingly tell people that MTV should be suing these boxers because this is just celebrity death matches made in reality, right? I mean, they just took an absurd idea that MTV did with the cartoons and brought it to real life. And well, hey, man, it's selling. And I love the celebrity death matches, by the way. But that was comedy and fake, and now it's entered into reality. I think that they'll do good numbers, Jim. I mean, I actually think that they'll do good numbers. Will they do Tyson numbers? No, but they will do good numbers. And depending on how things go, man, they may actually get more views than the UFC.
But were the Tyson numbers the Tyson numbers? Dude, Jake Paul was on that card. We don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, how many of those?
Yeah, but he wasn't selling that. He wasn't. We don't know that. Mike Tyson's the king of pay-per-views, man. Yeah, no, Jake Paul wasn't selling that. Tyson was selling that. We're gonna find out.
I wouldn't be so sure if Jake Paul beats it with Ben Askren.
Yeah, but no, Jake Paul. I am confident that he's not going to beat the numbers that Tyson got in that return fight. He's Mike Tyson, man. Jake Paul doesn't have that. But he could do it. He could do a good number, and
you see the number of followers this kid has, Jeff?
Yeah, but that doesn't.
It's staggering, dude. McGregor, like literally.
I know, but whenever you look at the number of followers that people have, I mean, Dana White's got tons of followers. The UFC has tons of followers. It doesn't always equate to people buying it. But yeah, I mean, he's got a good possibility of selling, really good numbers, and then we're going to have to endure more fights, win or lose. I don't know. That's my big question about the Jake Paul deal. Is this the end of the road? If Askren beats him, knocks him out, is that the end of it? Are we done with the Pauls, or do we have more fights where he's called out like Leonardo or something, or he's fighting, some actor or something? And I think that there's a market for those fights. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a market for those fights. And people can say what they want, man. I mean, would I tune in to see, I mean, hell, I would tune in to see De Niro and Eastwood's old asses beat the crap out of each other, So whenever you get to younger celebrities, I think that there's a market for it. It's not legitimate, and it's really not what I would consider sport, but it is entertaining and people will buy it. And we're in a weird time in the world. I'm a purist, that. I don't like these fights, but at the end of the day, man, it's how you can make money. It's how you sell stuff. And if it's successful, it's successful, and you can't knock success. I mean, at the end of the day, I can say what I want about Jake Paul. Do I think he's a joke? Yes. Do I think he's a legitimate boxer? No. Do I think that this is all a gimmick? Yes. But is it going to make a shit ton of money? Yeah. Yeah, it is. And so I can't really knock it. It's a weird, I'm conflicted on what Jake Paul and his brother are able to do a little bit, but man, they're able to pull it off. So props to them for that.
Yeah, they are, and they're wrestlers and they're fighters. I mean, they're not great or good even. They're just great at getting an audience on social media, and I think that's going to be a really big question for this weekend. Will that fight on pay-per-view do bigger numbers than Whittaker and Gastelum on ESPN Plus, and will that fight create more fans of that genre of combat sports? It probably will. Will Ben Askren lose and shame MMA fighters everywhere? And that's what it is to me. If Ben Askren loses to this dude, I mean, it's a big black eye on the sport, and no one's talking about it. And by the way, thanks, David Keller. Just like this and subscribe. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you, David, and we appreciate all of you who are liking and subscribing and coming in the chat. And we want to get your thoughts, man. Throw it up there in the chat right now. What do you think about this fight this weekend? What do you think about Paul and Askren? And what do you think about the dichotomy? What do you think about Whittaker and Gastelum? Which one do you think is going to do more views? Which one do you care more about? What do you think is going to happen in each fight? Does Ben Askren carry the whole sport of MMA on his shoulders in there? The fighters are reacting like not. Frank Mir is going to be there too, not against Antonio Tarver like originally scheduled, against Steve Cunningham, and that is a big blow to the card. But Jeff, we'll see. I mean, before we transition to Whittaker and Gastelum, I have to ask you, and as a purist like you, it's hard for me as we're doing a preview show to make the preview the third story in the show. But it is what it is, man. The last thing I want to ask you about this is, you, Askren, especially if Jake Paul knocks him out or gets a TKO, is that a huge, huge, huge black eye for mixed martial arts?
No, I don't think so. In fact, I hope for Jake Paul's sake that he doesn't. I hope for Jake Paul's sake that he looks good for a round or two and then loses. Because if Jake Paul beats Ben Askren, Jake Paul's going to get lined up with somebody he has no business being in there with. And so that's sort of the way I look at it. You know, is that this is a damned if you do, damned if you don't for Jake Paul. Jake Paul wants to win this fight, but if you win this fight, man, you're going to get somebody that you don't want, you know. And so I think this is the perfect matchup. I think it was smart for Jake Paul to call out Askren. Askren wasn't the first choice, but it was definitely somebody Paul had in mind, and it's because he feels that Ben's not that great of a striker, and Ben's not that great of a striker. But we're about to find out on how bad of a mixed martial arts boxer, if they can go in here and beat a guy who's a YouTube boxer. You know, it's kind of weird. I don't think it holds. I don't think it kills MMA. It looks bad on the MMA community, especially because Askren's not even an active fighter. You know, if this were a big name guy, you know, I feel like McGregor doing what he did was almost worse in a way, because it showed that the top strikers in mixed martial arts cannot compete with the top strikers in boxing in a boxing environment.
Look how big Jake Paul is, though. He's pretty big. I mean, he does have power, as you said. So Ben's got to be careful, especially early. But the kid's got decent cardio. He's trained with Masvidal. We know Jake Paul takes these fights very seriously. He trains like a real fighter. He brings in great sparring partners. You know, huh?
Do you know what he weighed in? I mean, I'm just looking at it. He looks like a good 195. And that's just assuming.
I don't remember what he weighed in for Robinson.
Yeah, I don't remember either. But he's a big guy. He's not a little dude. You know, he's a cruiserweight or a light heavyweight. Maybe
it is cruiserweight. It's cruiserweight. The fight's cruiserweight. Okay. Oh, well, there you go. So that's what he weighs. And we know Askren's not a big dude. You know, Askren's not ripped. Askren doesn't. He's he fought at 170. He probably walks around right around 185. Right. I mean, he doesn't cut a lot of weight. And he's a guy that's not ripped and all that. And anyway. And so, yeah, he's going to be a smaller guy. And that's going to be interesting because so much of boxing can take place in the clinch, right? And it's going to be interesting if Jake Paul can kind of muscle Ben Askren around. And the reason why I asked if it was a legitimate sanctioned fight is because if it wasn't, if I were Askren, I'd take him down a couple of times just to be funny. But because it's a sanctioned fight, you can't do those shenanigans. And that's why I asked earlier. You know, because maybe
Ben
after the
funky,
fight.
Yeah, you know how Askren is, man.
Take him down and beat him up in the middle of the ring.
Yeah, yep. I mean, it would be funny for Askren to do that. Yeah,
and I love
but
Ben.
If it's
Ben's a good dude, man. I've known him for years. He was an assistant coach at Arizona State in the wrestling program under Sean Charles when Anthony Robles and Bubba Jenkins, who's, by the way, in PFL this season, were there and, went to the golf tournaments and raising money. And you had guys like Curly Culp and Dan Severn and Dan Henderson and, Don Fry and Ryan Bader and CB Dalloway and Cain Velasquez and all those dudes. But then you had Ben Askren. He was an assistant coach on the staff, and this is before he became big as a fighter. And he was a big-time champion, obviously, at one, right? He was an undefeated, and Bellator, an undefeated champion. He came into the UFC and beat Robbie Lawler, a former champion, in a fight where he faced big adversity early on. He got smoked by the Masvidal knee, and he looked bad against Damian Maia, and that was it. People are wondering why he gets a payday. Mike Perry comes out and says, hey, why is Ben Askren getting a payday? He got smashed in 5 seconds. Because Jake Paul is the one who picked him, and they went back and forth on social media, and that's what happened. I mean, Jake Paul is handpicking, and Ben Askren was smart enough to take it. So we'll see where this goes from here. He's called out Diaz. He's called out McGregor. He just called out Poirier to spar with him. And if he does, like you said, if he does win this fight, Jake Paul is going to be a hunted man by MMA fighters everywhere who want to take his head off. And it'll probably start. I don't know if Diaz or McGregor will respond to it, but it might, I mean, at some point you might get a guy who's on the way out and retiring who would go and box him. Maybe you get a recently retired MMA fighter who was a really good boxer. But we'll see, Jeff. Can't wait for that one. Meantime, it's UFC preview, UFC Fight Night, Whittaker versus Gastelum this weekend in Vegas at the Apex. The fans are coming back. This is one of the last shows without him. Can't wait to see Kelvin Gastelum get this opportunity against Robert Whittaker. They were supposed to fight a couple of years ago. The fight ended up being off. Kelvin was supposed to get his chance and didn't get it. Whittaker ended up losing the belt to Israel Adesanya, who had already beat Kelvin in an interim title fight, which was set up after the Whittaker-Gastelum fight. Didn't happen. Kelvin Gastelum, the Ultimate Fighter winner at number 8. Whittaker is number 1 in the middleweight division. Kelvin Gastelum, Jeff, just won his fight against Kevin Holland, a last-second replacement, and he obviously replaced Darren Till. But when you look at the rankings now, with Gastelum at 8 and Darren Till falls to 6, Brunson drops a spot till 5, Cannonier drops to 4, Vettori goes up to 3 when Brunson had a more impressive win over Holland literally 3 weeks before. Now Vettori is ahead of Brunson, and Kelvin Gastelum is literally fighting Whittaker for a potential title shot, but he's also fighting to finish this fight in spectacular fashion so he can get the shot over his teammate, Marvin Vettori. What a story this is.
Yeah, it's a crazy storyline, and like you said, they were supposed to fight at UFC 234, and look, that fight was gone. I mean, ready to go. They weighed in and everything, and hours before the event, Robert Whittaker had to pull out because of the abdominal hernia and was rushed into emergency surgery the next day. And that Kelvin's opportunity fell to the wayside. Unfortunate. He didn't get that opportunity to fight for the belt. And so like you brought up, the interim title was created and then Whittaker lost the belt. Now here we are. Kelvin finally gets that fight that was supposed to happen a year ago or 2 years ago. And it's a huge opportunity for Kelvin because in Kelvin's last fight, I felt like he had to fight for his job. Right, he had to snap a losing streak. He couldn't afford to lose again. He went out there, he looked good, he won the fight, and we didn't really know where he was going to go from there because he's ranked in the lower half of the top 10. Who they were going to match him up with, we didn't know. Opportunity presented itself when all of this stuff happens when Paulo Costa gets injured or illness or whatever it was, and then now Kelvin's back right where he was. Kelvin has the opportunity to erase 2019 and 2020 where he was kind of winning.
Yes.
He has an opportunity right here. I'm not guessing that it's going to happen. It's an uphill battle, man, because Whittaker's trained. He's a former champion. He's faced tougher competition, but Kelvin's been in there with the who's who in 2 different divisions. Kelvin is definitely a competent fighter, has knockout power.
Yep.
I don't know how well he matches up with Whittaker, though, but it's a huge opportunity for Kelvin. Huge opportunity. And for Whittaker, man, he really doesn't have a lot to gain in this. He just has to win. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think he necessarily has to look great. He just has to win. But a loss for Whittaker to Gastelum right here is devastating.
Devastating. No, but he's worked his way back. Whittaker has too, with those great wins over Cannonier and Till, two outstanding fighters. So he's earned his way back. He didn't get the immediate rematch. Izzy's gone and fought Yoel, who he called out himself. Izzy did. Izzy's gone and fought Jan for the 205 title. You know what I mean? So, and then, of course, Costa in between that. 3 fights in between. So Whittaker has earned this. 3 fights for Adesanya and 2 fights for Whittaker since Adesanya took Whittaker's belt. So you can never say Whittaker doesn't deserve it if he wins this fight. Wins over Cannonier and Till and Gastelum for sure get Whittaker that shot over Vettori. There's no way that doesn't happen. Whittaker's the guy with a win. But if Kelvin wins, then the question becomes, is it Kelvin or Vettori? Which one would you do? I obviously would do Kelvin. 2 reasons. 1, I believe Kelvin's wins are better than Vettori's at that point by far. And 2, I believe at that point, when you move forward with that one, not only are his wins better than Vettori's, but Kelvin and Izzy was one of the best fights I've ever seen. And there's no one in the UFC who won't want to run that one back.
Well, then you still have Paulo sitting there who could, magically fall in to a title fight, depending on the way things go. Whittaker's the number 1 contender. He just has to solidify that this weekend, and then it'll be him, I think. And Vettori can talk all he wants. Vettori's new, relatively new to the organization, and Whittaker's still running out his era, right? I mean, he's still running out that title picture, and I don't feel like Vettori's gotten there yet. And so I feel like the UFC will probably do Whittaker before Vettori just because of name value and all of that. Costa's the one that kind of stands out because he pulled out of the fight. But if Kelvin wins, Paulo could find himself back in a title fight. I mean, he could literally find himself pulling out of a number 1 contender bout and then end up in a title fight.
You think they give him one after the way Izzy dominated him last time?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that people. It depends, man. I mean, it depends. I could see it happening. I mean, like I said, Kelvin can really throw a monkey wrench in the top of that division right now. I mean, throw a huge monkey wrench in there because, like you said, if Kelvin beats Whittaker, then Whittaker falls off the number one spot. Who is the number one spot then? Do you give it to Kelvin? Or does it move everybody up?
It would be
All of a
Costa.
sudden,
I mean, looking at the rankings now,
yeah.
if no one jumps, it would be Costa.
Yeah, and then how
These
far do
two.
you drop Whittaker? And so it becomes really murky water. If Kelvin wins, but we've seen that happen a lot in the last year. Where people just throw monkey wrenches in the UFC sort of laid out plans. Now, I'm not saying the UFC has laid out plans. UFC has plan A, B, C, and D, but they definitely have a vision of how they think things are going to go. And Kelvin has an opportunity to just throw all that out the window and force those matchmakers to sit down for hours on end and debate on who the hell gets the title shot.
Yeah, and there's Kelvin at the press conference for UFC 200, which was held at UFC 199 in LA, UFC 200 in Vegas right after that. And Kelvin, of course, bludgeoned Johnny Hendricks. And that's when I realized, all right, Kelvin is for real. And, since then, he's had some huge wins. He's had a couple of tough losses like Chris Weidman, Adesanya, and then he went on a little bit of a lull. And I just did an interview with him where we talked about this, and we'll be releasing that this week on MMA Weekly. And I talked about his path and about how, he beat Jacare in Brazil before Jacare faded. I mean, that's a huge win. He crushed Tim Kennedy. I mean, he's got huge wins. Bisping, knocked Michael Bisping out right after Bisping lost his belt. Kelvin's got big wins. None of them obviously would be bigger than this one. He thought he had the Adesanya fight won a couple of times. How his career would have changed with that win and then maybe fighting Whittaker and beating him after. But both these guys can wrestle. Both these guys are pretty good wrestlers. Both these guys have a lot of power. Whittaker with the right hand, Kelvin with the left, and they have it in both hands. Kelvin's a little bit better of a boxer, I think. Whittaker's kicks are better. Jiu-jitsu, Kelvin's really good. That's going to be a hell of a fight, man. This is a really good matchup for Kelvin Gastelum. It can also be looked at as a really good matchup for Robert Whittaker. I can't wait for this fight, Jeff. The odds right now on Whittaker versus Gastelum, obviously Whittaker, the big favorite. I see him all the way up at minus 270, and I see Kelvin at plus 210 is the lowest. He's up to plus 230. So Whittaker, a pretty big favorite here in the main event. And, man, there's just the styles make fights. This one, when I look at it on paper, I don't look at anything on paper anymore, or on the computer screen or the phone screen. When I look at it on the computer screen or the phone screen, it looks like this matchup is dead even to me, based on their strengths, based on their characteristics, based on the performances that I've seen in fight after fight. They both have great chins. I mean, I literally cannot wait. When you think of the word fighter and two guys who embody that word, it doesn't get any better than Robert Whittaker and Kelvin. One from Australia, one from Mexico, Robert Whittaker and Kelvin Gastelum.
Yeah, I don't think that this is even. I think Whittaker has clear advantages in the speed, reach, and his kicks are going to give Kelvin a lot of problems. For Kelvin, to me, he's got to land that big shot, or he's got to turn this into a really dirty inside clinch type of wrestling and scrambles game,
like he did against Heinisch. Yep.
Yeah, but Whittaker's a tough nut to crack. Whittaker's got great takedown defense, and Whittaker's got good wrestling himself. It wouldn't shock me at all to see Whittaker take Kelvin down. Because Whittaker sometimes mixes in takedowns, even when he's winning the striking, he sometimes mixes in the takedowns. And so, yeah, I think this is a good fight. I think it's Whittaker's fight to lose. Can Kelvin win this fight? Absolutely. But I feel like he has to do something big to win, where Whittaker probably could out kickbox Kelvin, not out boxing, but out kickboxing with those. I mean, he's got devastating kicks to the body, it depends.
The kicks are a big advantage for Rob. Yep, they are. I believe you.
And so we'll see, man. Whittaker's going to have to eat some kicks, fire off straight punches down the middle to deter him from throwing those kicks, and then maybe catch one and put him on his back. We'll see. Whittaker's going to, Kelvin's going to be highly motivated for this fight, right? I mean, if anything, Whittaker's the one that's let down. He's like, hold on, I was going to fight the number 2 guy in the world, and there was going to be no question that I'm the number 1 contender, no question that I get the title fight. Now I'm fighting the 8th guy in the world with not a hell of a lot to gain. And so I don't know, man, that the mental aspect of it, Whittaker's a professional, no question about
I don't
it.
think that changes. I still think he thinks with a win, he's got the shot. I don't see any way he wouldn't.
I think that he gets the shot, but I mean, a loss to Costa, then Whittaker drops to 3, right? Or 2 even. A loss to Kelvin, Whittaker's going to drop considerably. He's going to drop behind all of those people on win streaks. He's going to drop behind I mean, he ended up like 4 or 5 in the division, with this loss.
I mean, he's beaten all the guys. He's beaten all the guys who would pass him.
Well,
not Vettori.
Yeah.
And not Paulo.
And then Costa. Yeah. So he's got that. I mean, but that puts him at 4, right there. If he drops behind those 2 people, he's going to end up 4. And that's totally different. Then all of a sudden you're a fight away from a title fight, or something crazy happens and like what we're in right now. I think it's a good fight. I just feel like it's Whittaker's to lose. I feel like he should be the favorite. He is the favorite. He should be able to control the fight, but he's got to be real careful with Kelvin, man.
Yeah, he does.
And Whittaker's been finished before. He's been rocked in a lot of his fights. That's what makes Whittaker so great is even in those fights that he's rocked, he just fights back and still ends up winning, except for the Izzy fight. And so we're going to see if Kelvin can put Whittaker in that danger zone. Not a lot of people have been able to do that to Whittaker, but the ones that have, Whittaker has problems. When Whittaker gets hit, he does have some issues. He just bites down on the mouthpiece and fires back and tries to get it back, which may not be the best thing to do whenever you're hurt. It's worked out for him in several fights in the past. I don't know if it works out for him here, because we've seen Kelvin hurt people and then slow down and get real methodical and finish them. So I think outside of Whittaker getting hurt, though, by a big shot by Kelvin, Whittaker should win this fight. And then it doesn't hurt Gastelum at all. So what? You lost to the number guy in the world. But we'll see what happens. Plus, he stepped up on short notice. So I think this is good for Kelvin all the way around. He did the promotion a favor. He's getting to fight the number 1 guy in the world.
Money.
He just really needs to look good in there.
Event.
Yeah, money. Even if he loses, as long as he looks good and doesn't just get decimated in the first minute, then Kelvin has had a good night. For Whittaker,
and he's on ESPN.
Whittaker has to look good and win, but he doesn't have to go crazy, because he just has to win. He just has to win.
Those knee stomps will stop Gastelum in his tracks. The Dark Cloud NC. There he is. The Dark Cloud is back in the chat room. We got some good people in the chat room right here, Jeff. Whittaker will slow Gastelum down by throwing those heel kicks into Kelvin's kneecap. That's also the Dark Cloud NC. That's what he means. Like that one. Afi MS, welcome back, man. Being positive today. We love to see that. Rob gets the win, then it's a title shot for him. C Maybe says, if Gastelum can win, I could see him beating Izzy in the rematch. That was a great first fight. I don't know if they meant to put getting, because it says betting or beating, but getting or beating, same thing, right? Not really, but getting or beating. And then if Robert gets rocked, he will clinch up with Kelvin. Whittaker gets the W. Look, I mean, I'm not naive. I love Kelvin. I've known him since he was a kid. I also really like Rob Whittaker. I've gotten to know him both over the years. And, in fact, Matt Davies, who works with us at MMA Weekly, is pretty tight with Rob Whittaker and his team. And, it's just one of those things. I mean, good guys fight each other. What are you going to do? I mean, Gastelum and Vettori are teammates if one of them gets the shot over the other one after this fight, right? But at the end of the day, man, I'm not naive. If I'm looking and I'm a Kelvin Gastelum fan, I know Robert Whittaker is the deserved favorite in this fight, but I also know Kelvin can end at any time with that left, with dynamite in it. He can batter you with the boxing. He's a terrific boxer with a great chin. Whittaker with the kicks has a big advantage. The wrestling is pretty tight, and I think even in the clinch, both guys very good. I mean, I just look, Whittaker's a champion and a legendary champion. Kelvin is as close to a champion as you can get. These are as high-level fighters as you're going to find in the world. It's just a matter of, the best of the best have the belts, and everybody's fighting for them. I mean, it's the UFC. It's the best of the best, right? So can't wait for this one. We're going to give our our predictions in a minute right here on MMA Weekly. It's UFC preview, Whittaker versus Gastelum, UFC Fight Night, ESPN and ESPN Plus this weekend in Vegas. We will be live Saturday night for this one, and for Jake Paul and Ben Askren. Jake Paul minus 135, Ben Askren plus 115, by the way. Jake Paul, the favorite over Ben Askren. Funky, the underdog coming in. But guys, I will say this. We are powered by CBD Emporium, featuring Level Select CBD. And right now, you can get 50% off the greatest CBD products in the world. Let me clear this up. I saw some comments in the chat. This isn't CBD you're buying off the back of a truck that's rolling through your neighborhood like the ice cream man. This isn't CBD that you're buying online from a unanimous website where your money gets sent to 43 places before it comes your way. This isn't CBD that they're mixing with every substance in the world. You don't even know what it is. This is the purest CBD, zero THC, the purest on the planet, non-GMO, animal friendly, made in the USA. I mean, come on, guys, you can't beat it. Level Select CBD from CBD Emporium. 3 levels for 3 levels of pain. Level Select CBD. Stay in the fight. And Jeff, the co-main event is Jeremy Stephens and Jakar Close. How about an opportunity for Jakar Close? Jeremy Stephens hasn't won in a long time, and you have a lot of fighters. Jeff, the one thing that stood out to you, and I don't want to steal your shine, but you told me before the show that you got a lot of fighters that haven't won in a while on this fight card.
Yeah, I mean, Stephens hasn't won a fight in basically 3 years. That's the co-main event. And then on the preliminary card, you have former Ultimate Fighter, Invicta veteran Jessica Penne coming back to fighting after a 4-year layoff. Yeah. And then there's just a lot of people who are off of losses. This is definitely a fight card that's top heavy. This is a fight card that you see that leads into a pay-per-view, right? Whenever you get, because I think there's only 2 ranked fighters on this card, and it's the main event. And then everything else just kind of falls in place. But a lot of these are bouts. Where's Stephens ranked? He can't be ranked. He hasn't won a fight.
Stephens is ranked 10th. He's ranked 10th.
Wow.
Jeremy Stephens is ranked 10th at behind Ige. Arnold Allen went up 2 spots ahead of Ige and Stephens, who's at 10.
How are you ranked?
But I don't see anybody else who's your favorite thing in the world, right? Well, I mean, just not enough fighters.
He literally has not won a fight since February 2018. And he's ranked in the top 10. Wow, I mean, that's just a testament to just how weak that division is once you get out of the top 5.
Who he's lost to also. Aldo, Zabit, Yair twice. One was a no contest, so once. Aldo, Zabit, Yair, and Calvin Kattar. I mean, that's a pretty tough run for anybody. I think that's why he's still ranked, because those are the 4 fights he lost.
Yeah, boy, he's living and dying on that Josh Emmett win. I mean, he's living and dying on that Josh Emmett win. Yeah, I can't believe that he's ranked after being, and I'm on the ranking panel, and I didn't realize that he was ranked. Hell, he might be ranked on my ballots.
Well, he's not ranked because of you. We know that.
No, he's definitely not ranked because of me. I mean, it's just too many losses. You got to win. You can't just go over for 3 years and then still be ranked. Or not normally. So, yeah, okay, so there's 3 fighters on this fight card. But my point, going back to that, is just that these are the fight cards you get leading into a pay-per-view, right? The fight nights, sometimes fight nights hold different weight. And then the ones right before a pay-per-view are usually just, let's get this event over and get onto the pay-per-view. And this fight card lost the main event. It's got a replacement fighter in the main event. And it's got a whole bunch of people who are off of losses or hasn't won in a while. That doesn't mean the fights are going to be bad, though. I mean, I'll say that Jeremy Stephens off 3 years of losses doesn't really matter because people still like to watch Jeremy Stephens fight, and he's still an incredibly exciting fighter. And so just because the rankings and just because these guys are off of losses doesn't mean that they're not going to be good fights. We talk about that all the time. Names don't sell the fights, or they sell the fights, but the fights themselves are what we tune in to see. And some of the biggest names in the sports have laid eggs, and some of the people you don't even know have had crazy historic fights, back and forth wars. I expect to see some good fights on this fight card, but there's not a lot of interest. There's not a lot of meaningful fights outside of the main event. I'll say that.
No, and someone just asked in the chat, and I'm sorry, it's already gone. I was going to say the name, but are spinning back fists allowed in boxing? No, for you been asking. That was just a random ADD moment for me, but I thought that was good to throw out there, Jeff. I'm excited about this card because every time we think it's not going to be a great card, it ends up being one, and all kinds of fighters get an opportunity to prove themselves. Look, Arnold Allen, for example, last week with a tremendous performance. Kevin Holland multiple times last year earning his way up. You never know who's going to be the next fighter to take that opportunity and take that step. Me personally, I know 4 fighters on this card for a long time, working my way up through the levels and calling fights and ring announcing. I ring announced Tracy Cortez's first amateur fight. I ring announced it. She was 18 years old. She's headlining the prelims against Justine Kish. Tracy, a big favorite at flyweight in that fight. It's only her second UFC fight after winning on the Contender Series. Anthony Burchak from Tucson, Arizona. I called some of his fights over the years. He makes his third. This is his 3rd time in the UFC. He's returning for the 2nd time. 3rd appearance in the UFC. And I don't mean just 3rd fight. I mean 3rd time coming back in for a fight as part of the roster. He opens against Tony Gravely. You got Jakar Close in the co-main event against Jeremy Stephens. Robert Whittaker against Kelvin Gastelum in the main event. I called Kelvin's high school championship wrestling match, and I ring announced his last fight before he went to the UFC. And Jakar Close, I called 3 of his fights on the way up. And it's just crazy to see how athletes can evolve and take advantage of opportunities as they come. So look, Jakar Close lights up Jeremy Stephens and knocks him out. He lost to Dariush in a war last year. Dariush got a Ferguson fight. this is a golden opportunity for Jakar Close. A great chance for a guy like Chase Sherman against a name and a gatekeeper like Andrei Arlovsky, who just keeps taking these fights, and I give him props for that, continuing to fighting. Gerald Mearshart, who's improved a lot, is on this card. You know, I mean, it's not the best card overall, but that potential for heads to be flown, as I like to call it, in those two, the co-main and the main, the danger level is high. Any of these guys can go to sleep at any moment. And I think those two fights for this type of card on ESPN and ESPN Plus, really excited for this. In fact, I like the Whittaker Gastelum fight a lot better on, there I go again, on phones and computers, not paper. Jim, I like that better than Whittaker Costa. But Whittaker Costa was pretty good too. But I still think as far as the co-main and the main go, you're not going to find better fights. Those are going to be wars in there.
I mean, they could potentially, and they could be, one-sided deals. Also, I think with those particular, I mean, I could see Whittaker rolling over Gastelum, and I could see Jeremy Stevens taking another loss here. But the fight should be good. And look, the heavyweights with Andre, look, heavyweights, there's always, somebody's getting knocked out in that fight. So there's going to be crazy moments on this fight card. There always are. There's going to be crazy knockouts. There's going to be good, good back and forth fights. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that there's not a lot of meaningful, that, the matchup that means the most is the main event. And then the rest of them, there's not a lot of movement in divisions other than Jeremy Stevens could lose his ranking altogether. And then Dakar jump in there wherever it is. I'd still try to wrap my head around Jeremy Stevens being ranked. That's still crazy to me.
Well, he's ranked at featherweight. He's ranked 10 at featherweight, but he's going back to lightweight. He's going back to lightweight. I mean, Stevens missed weight a bunch of times. His last time out against Cater, he missed it by 5 pounds. So he's at 55, Jakar's division. So Stevens has not fought at lightweight since Yves Edwards, December 8th, 2012. He debuted at featherweight against Estevan Payan at UFC 160. Another Arizona guy, Estevan Payan. But Stevens hasn't fought at lightweight in 9 years. And here he is this weekend fighting Jakar.
Well, he might not be ranked after this. I don't know. We can only rank who's available to be ranked. And sometimes whenever they take fights outside of the division and the UFC talks to him and Steven says, I'm a lightweight now, they'll remove him from the featherweight rankings themselves and he's not an option. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it might happen. And you see that all the time, right? Whenever people get cut, even though they're ranked, they're clearly out of the rankings. But yeah, this is a lightweight fight. It has been a while. He did miss weight in his last fight. We'll see, man. Jeremy Stevens is one of those guys that's been around for a long time. There's a lot of miles. There's a lot of miles on that guy, but he still packs a punch, and he's only 34 years old. Considering how long he's been fighting. He made his debut in 2005, and he's only 34 years old. There's a lot of mileage on that car. But he needs a big win, man. I mean, he's a guy. And look, Jeremy Stevens is an exciting fighter, period. Like, if nothing's on the line.
From alliance with Dominic Cruz and those guys,
Yeah, he's probably fighting for his job here. And so I expect to see Jeremy Stevens come out guns blazing, and just, looking like he usually does with a little bit more urgency. Because he fights that way anyway. And now I feel like he's got a little more pressure on him than this one than he has in the past.
All right, well, we're going to make our picks right now, Jeff, because we're almost out of time. It's UFC preview, Whittaker versus Gastelum, powered by CBD Emporium, featuring Level Select CBD. 50% off right now your full order of CBD Emporium and Level Select CBD at stayinthefightmma.com and entering the code MMA50. Look great, feel great, be great. That's how I say it. Well, we can take care of the second two for you. Not sure about the first one, that you're on your own, but feel great, be great. That's good. You're all good with stayinthefightmma.com and the code MMA50. But hey, if you feel good, you're going to look better too, because when you're working out, when you're getting a little exercise, you won't have any pain. You'll sleep better. Your body will respond. See what I'm saying? It's unbelievable. Stayinthefightmma.com and the code MMA50. We're giving our picks and we're out of here, guys. And this is going to live for a few days. So make sure you keep clicking, subscribe, hit the bell, comment, anything you want. Let's blow this one up on Saturday night. Let's get the best and set records for views with this one. Let's set records, guys. Let's all be here Saturday night for this epic night with Ben Askren carrying the flag for MMA in there against Jake Paul. And, of course, Whittaker and Gastelum, both of them looking for another title shot. Kelvin Gastelum had the interim title fight against Israel Adesanya. That was so close a couple of years ago. These two were supposed to fight before that. It got called off. Whittaker, of course, knocked out by Adesanya. Big wins on the rebound over Jared Cannonier and Darren Till. to earn a potential title shot with a win here. Jeff, Whittaker, minus 270. Kelvin, plus 230. Stevens, minus 120. Close, plus 100. I am going with Kelvin Gastelum by upset. TKO in the 4th round. Maybe part of it's with my heart. I just believe some people have their time. I believe some people pay their dues and they come back. KG's been through a lot of shit. I believe it's his time. He gets this win and maybe a title shot. And I believe Drakkar Klose and Jeremy Stevens, the guns are going to be flying. The fists are going to be slung. I'm sorry to do this to you, Dre, but I'm going Jeremy Stevens, man. He's got a lot of dynamite in those fists, moving back up to 155, Jeff. And I think that that's going to give him the extra power. He connects on Drakkar. It's lights out, but Drakkar could finish him just as easy. I will say this. I think both the co-main and the main are going to be finishes, and violent ones at that.
Yeah, I'm picking Robert Whittaker to knock out Kelvin Gastelum in the 2nd round without too much difficulty. Leg kicks, setting up, and maybe it'll end in a high kick because he's deceptive with the way he mixes those in. And then I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to pick Drakkar in the co-main, although that to me is a very close fight. That to me can go both ways. That to me is a pick 'em. I'm going to pick Drakkar, but man, I'm hesitant in doing so because of the power Jeremy Stevens brings and the experience Jeremy Stevens has. But I'm going to pick it. I'm going to pick a knockout. So we're gonna go opposite on our picks here, and we'll see how it turns out. I look forward to this, man. It's going to be a crazy night on Saturday. Boxing matches, middleweight title, #1 contender bouts, and then people fighting for their careers, man.
All right, Jeff, 10 seconds or left. Who you got, Paul or Askren? Paul, the favorite.
I'm going with Ben Askren in that. And, Holyfield was in the news. I wish Ben would have worked with Holyfield to work on those headbutts and those elbows on the inside. He could really use them in this fight. But I'm going to pick Ben Askren to win. I just don't know. I don't know, man, because I feel like that maybe Jake Paul will get disqualified if he's losing. I feel like this could be a big spectacle. But I think Askren's going to beat him, but we'll see.
We want the funk. Got to have that funk. Ben, you got to win. Ben, if you've ever listened to anything anybody's ever said before, you have to beat this dude. You have to win. I don't want to see any more of these with Jake Paul. I don't want to see him fight any more MMA fighters. I want you to knock this dude's head off and send him back to social media land where he belongs. There, I said it. Am I wrong? At me. It's Jim Grieshaber, it's Jeff Cain, it's MMA Weekly, UFC preview powered by CBD Emporium featuring Level Select CBD. 50% off right now at StayInTheFightMMA.com with the code MMA50. Jeff, I can't wait for this weekend with these two fights. It's going to be a lot of fun here live on Saturday night. Don't forget Fallout Mondays live at 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern, and then previews every Wednesday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern as well, man. Can't wait for this weekend. Very excited. Pumped to have done this show with you. Thank you to our production team. Thank you to everybody who makes MMA Weekly the most trusted source of news and entertainment in mixed martial arts for almost 20 years. And most of all, thank you. You guys came strong again today for this one. We appreciate it. We love you very, very much. We will be here live Saturday night for these two fights. Until then, I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Gries, saying keep your game tight and your mind right. Fight fans, we are out.